Well, of course, this is the place where you come to get the good news. And Bradford Ferguson is here. He would like to tell you the good news. Bradford, what happened to Tesla stock today?
It was up quite a bit. We recaptured $200. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. We were up wait a minute, I've got my notes here all messed up. 6.22% during regular trading hours. 201 and change the last time I looked. Finished at the high for the day. So all of those things are really pretty amazing. I know said you were running around all day. You might not have had a chance to look around, but I had a couple of theories in terms of what might have happened today. Oh, by the way, Bradford Ferguson is with rebellionaire.com, and I know he wants me to say that. So go look him up on rebellionaire.com. Okay, now let's talk about a couple of possibilities. Let me throw them out. Maybe you'll have some to add. Okay. What could it have been the announcement from Panasonic and LG, both of them today, saying 4680 production starting later this year by them, and that would make way more batteries available, which would mean Tesla would have no battery constraints at all
Mhm.
toward the middle end of the year. Are the guys on the street, the big investors, are they savvy enough to even know that that's a thing? Or could that have had anything at all to do with it?
Yeah, I think that could have helped. We also saw that like all the EV stocks were up today, and like the junkiest ones were up the most.
Yeah, I did notice that as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
why was all the EVs up today? It's a good question. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I was wondering again, maybe there on the RSI, Tesla was really, really oversold, and you got
Mhm.
all the rest of the Magnificent Seven maybe overbought at this point. Could there have been a little bit of rotation out of those into Tesla? Could that have been a possibility?
Yeah, I think so. Nvidia is extremely overbought. Um, and I think the danger is high in Nvidia when like everyone is like agreeing suddenly that AI is a thing, and um, so it's been quite the change that happened since March of past year or even May. Um, I was pounding on the table. Tesla bulls were banging on Nvidia because its price to earnings was pretty high. Its
Yeah,
earnings were artificially low.
right.
Um, they got they got Osborne, and then people were saying Nvidia was overpriced when it was at 450 in May, even though they announced these huge earnings that were coming. Um, Investing is all about future profits and future earnings, but it seems like everyone's in agreement. It's kind of funny that it feels like they just started this Magnificent Seven thing, and already they're cutting out Tesla because Tesla was down ever since it got added, and now that Tesla's been thrown out unceremoniously, now Tesla has this great day. It's kind of funny.
I know it is crazy. And it was really completely outside the market. The market wasn't doing anything. I mean, the Dow was up, but the NASDAQ, I think, was actually down for the day, if I remember right. So it was really completely outside of, and Mag 7, I think, were either all down or all but one. Anyway,
And like everyone's suddenly turning in their Apple Vision Pro, and seems like virtue signaling that they're returning it.
that's right.
Uh,
So what about this? How about could it have been partially a relief rally because treasuries dropped after yesterday's CPI nonsense? I'm sorry, after yesterday's CPI, one data point that shouldn't have been driving the stock market down 550 points. Oh no, never mind. I'm sorry. It could have been a relief rally that the bonds were actually up today and rates down.
Yeah, maybe people thought twice about the CPI number and kind of where we are. Looking at the 12-month chart of CPI, it's the kind of chart you want to see if you're looking at the CPI with food and energy or without. It's, quite the decline that we're seeing. You'd like to see it declining much stronger, but if you didn't have any knowledge of what expectations were coming into the number or what the market reaction was, uh, you would say it's a good looking chart.
Yeah, no kidding. And some people thought that maybe yesterday's huge downtick was more of a okay, that's a piece of news that we can sell on, and might have gotten some algorithms going that kind of made it worse than it was, especially when you see the Dow bouncing back almost 3/5 of what it was down yesterday. So might have been, like you said, took folks a day to think about it. Well, okay, what about no bad news for Tesla in the last 2 days? I mean, 2 days in a row. Maybe that's why it went up 10 points today.
Yeah. I just think it was oversold, and absent a recession, we may have seen the low in Tesla.
So I have a couple of more here just for fun. Did you see the new note out with by Adam Jonas?
Yeah.
What did you think of the note?
Yeah, basically saying we need China. China is a key part supplier in Mexico, and Tesla has these big plans for Mexico, and it hinges on China. But then the U.S. is seeing what's happening, the U.S. government, and they're threatening to renegotiate or rethink the U.S. Mexico Canada free trade agreement. So it's kind of ironic and really disappointing that the moment that Tesla's going to move into Mexico, building cars there, immediately they're going to change the rules.
Yeah, and they're also saying, of course, if Biden stays in, would they possibly change the rules with regard to Mexico? If Trump comes in, he's not going to change his own treaty that he worked so hard to get done. But
Mhm.
Trump, on the other hand, might want to redo the IRA, the all these benefits that Tesla's
Yeah.
getting and everybody else is getting from making things here. So either way, you've got an issue. I'm not 100% sure that either one of them are going to have enough congressional support to change either one of those things. Going to have to, I think, see more of a swing. I'm not expecting if even if Trump wins, I'm not expecting to see long tails. I'm not so sure he's going to get a Senate and a House to go along with his victory.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. I know that Tesla benefits some from the Inflation Reduction Act, but the giveaway to hybrid cars, where a hybrid car with a 10 kilowatt hour battery pack that might cost like $2,000 gets a $7,500 tax credit, is outrageous.
Nuts, yes.
I think the IRA benefits the legacy auto more, and it's understandable why they're pulling away from BEVs and trying to focus on hybrids because of this advantage that they have.
Yeah. So Kathy Wood has been buying Tesla stock hand over fist. I mean, for 2 weeks now. I think she's bought 10 out of the last 12 or 13 days or something like that. So I joked the first 4 or 5 days that maybe she was holding the price of the Tesla stock up single-handedly. But now, if you get enough days in a row, and then people start to see that she's doing that, there could be a, what's Kathy doing? What does she know?
Self-reinforcing effect.
Self-reinforcing effect. And so I'm wondering if the Kathy Wood effect might be a piece of this action that we actually have been seeing, because the stock has been up now for, even though it, of course, up and down, but in general, it's been trending up from what, 177 was the low, something like that.
Yeah, I think you've been critical of ARK. I've been a bit critical. You talk about risky growth stocks that they invest in. Um, I think that, if they've done well in sticking to their discipline.
Yeah.
So when Tesla went down, it became underweight in their portfolio, and they pretty aggressively rebalance. and that's caused them to buy as Tesla's gone down and stayed down. I'm interested to see if they trim tomorrow because
Yeah,
Tesla was up so much. I think it
right.
was up more than the many of the other names in their portfolio.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, so I obviously there's times when you can criticize Kathy Wood. I think she's brilliant. I think she's one of the most important people in the community right now, and I am a big fan. But yeah, of course, when she sold Nvidia at the point that she sold Nvidia, you could be critical. You could be critical of some of the time she's sold Tesla. But right now, buying Tesla, I think she's probably wise.
Mm.
Last one. Oh no, so I see I have two more of these. I have so many. So I don't know if you're aware of this, and maybe it's not even true, but I had a member of the community tell me today that he's on watching videos a lot during the day, and he has
Mm.
paid the $10 to not see ads. And he says he's seeing a lot of Tesla YouTube ads right now, way more than what there has been in the past. So maybe they're finding the YouTube thing is working. And if it is working and they're increasing the spend, that would not just impact people picking up the phone, calling, and placing an order for a car. It would impact potential investors who might also be seeing those ads.
Ooh, I
Ooh.
I like that. That's a interesting thought there. Yeah, I think there's many investors who would like to see more awareness for Teslas, and Tesla's ads regularly speak to the price of Tesla. Most people don't know a
Right.
Tesla starts at $40,000 or even under that. So they still have it in their mind that Teslas cost 60 or 80,000. So I think that it is a potential confidence booster potentially for investors. Yeah, for sure.
And then my actual last one, and this one's a really interesting one. It might even been the one that had the most impact of all eight of these. Ford's Farley, the CEO of Ford, said today that he might have to work on his EV technology with another automaker, according to
Mm.
Goldberg. Who would he work with? I don't know.
Yeah. It's a bit strange to hear that because Elon talked about on the call that, there was no longer a legacy automaker that was considering,
Actively, yeah.
full self-driving or whatever. Um, so that was a bit of a head scratcher, but like, maybe it's about something else. Maybe it's about the whole electrical communication system that's in a Tesla that they've revolutionized. They've unified like 200, 150 different pieces of software into one, and can deliver an over-the-air update that changes like the seat warmer or whatever,
Yeah,
or how it charges or how it breaks or the text size on the
right.
UI.
Yeah, I mean it's the unbox thing. You've got the what do you call the yeah, the way the entire car is made now.
Yeah.
I mean everything about the car is so revolutionary. If he's going to work with another EV company other than Tesla in order to jumpstart his EV program, I can't think who it would be other than Tesla. I mean, yes, you could work with a Chinese company, create a Chinese car or a Chinese company car in Mexico, but you're still going to be behind Tesla. I don't know. It would seem ludicrous to go with anybody but Tesla. So I think that might have been the biggest stimulus because that could be a very big deal in terms of like it was when Ford was first to come over on the North American standards.
Ultimately, Ford needs to get their costs down. This is why Ford has been pulling back in EVs. And in my opinion, the value per cost leader is Tesla. The value they deliver in the ownership experience, and the quality of the car, that's not going to fall apart or anything. Tesla delivers the most value per dollar for an EV, in my opinion. And
All right.
Ford would be very wise to work with Tesla.
They would. All right. So turning to the general economy, we had in the
I
afternoon.
had a little bit of news.
Okay.
I don't know if everyone caught this. So I basically tweeted that the start of this quarter for Model Y production in Giga Texas is 80% higher than the start of the third and fourth quarter. That doesn't mean the whole quarter is going to be a full
Right.
80% higher for Giga Texas, but the production is steadier from the start. So basically, off, they're picking back up right where they left off, above 4,000 per week coming out of Texas. They had a down week or two. Um, but right after that, it was right back to 4,000. They didn't suddenly dip down to 2,000 like they kind of have been.
All right. And so I did see your tweet on that. I'm sorry, your post on X, and
Mhm.
I actually reported it. I think last night. It might have been earlier, but I think it was last night that I reported.
Reposted it.
Huh?
You reposted it, not reported. Oh, you
I
reported it in a
reported it
video.
on my channel,
Oh,
and
cool.
but then I also sent a note off to Troy Teslike, and I also reported Troy Teslike's response. And
Oh boy.
Troy says he's not seeing that increase. So
Mhm.
anyway, I everybody's got their sources. Do you feel real high degree of confidence in your source?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. I mean, I want it to be true. Believe me. We also had same song, second verse statement that Berlin looks like it also came back at very high numbers, where a lot of folks were thinking that 6,000 was a one out. And
Mhm.
reporting today from the guy who does the drones in Berlin saying the numbers look really, really good right out the gate after they started production back up on Monday. So that seemed like good news as well.
Yeah, I would probably wait for a couple weeks for confirmation just because it was down a couple weeks and you
Right.
got a backlog of orders. Demand for the Model Y is strong in Europe. Um, so I think the pickup in supply of Model Y from Giga Texas was a primary reason why they lowered the
Right.
price on that one. But we did see an increase in the price at Giga Texas. I
Right.
mean, Giga Berlin
In. Yes.
of $2,500,
Yeah. Big increase. Yeah.
100 euros. So
Yeah.
that was a really big increase. I'm curious if that's for to stay. Um, I wonder if it's just because the whole Red Sea thing or not. We'll see.
Yeah, all kinds of possibilities. So, well, as long as we're on this subject, do you have anything from your source in terms of the Model 3 in the US? Because they've pushed out those numbers, their delivery dates again, and they raised the price of the Model 3, the new Model 3 in the US. Again, Troy's answer on that one was that he's seeing almost no production out of Fremont on the Model 3 Plus. So seeing it as being a supply problem. Are you hearing anything about the Model 3 Plus?
Yeah, he's looking at delay data that's delayed by a few weeks.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
it production is very low
Okay.
in Fremont. We'll see if it starts to pick up. Um, it's only been at about like 25% of what it was in the fourth quarter, what it averaged, and it was pretty steady in the fourth quarter. But it's definitely slower than what I would call the speedy Shanghai switchover that
Okay. Yeah.
happened with the Model 3, where it was down for a couple weeks, but it came back extremely fast.
Right.
We're not seeing that
Yeah.
in Fremont.
What's Tom Zoo doing? Come on, we're gonna have to get up.
Bring them back.
All right. So if we go over now to the general economy, the big news of the afternoon was the home builder confidence numbers. I don't know if you were on my show when I mentioned this once or twice, but I'm about 50% believing we're heading for a recession in the third quarter. I haven't gone more than 50% yet, but I felt like the big potential winner, the one thing that could possibly keep us out of recession would be residential home construction. So,
You would think, right? I mean,
yeah,
home values are so high. Yeah, I guess people are a little reluctant with, mortgage rates are still at, I don't know, 6 or 7%, but the demand for affordable property is very high. And even if you're built at different levels,
Right.
that more supply helps affordability.
Absolutely. So the home builders' confidence rose in February. That was no shock, with the industry expecting the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates later this year. Expectations about a potential rate cut in the coming months pushed it. The National Association of Home Builders Monthly Confidence Index 4 points, up 4 points to 48, still not quite over 50, but up to 48 in February, the trade group said. This is the third month in a row that it's up and the highest point since August of last year. The February figure exceeded what economists were forecasting, which was about 46. And a year ago, the index stood at 42. Builders are pulling back on cuts to home prices already. In January and early February, they're already cutting back on their cuts to home prices and other incentives that they've been giving. About 25% of the builders said they cut prices in February, down from 31% in January. And the average price cut for February was 6%. A smaller share of builders were using incentives. The three gauges that underpin the overall builder confidence all rose. Builders were upbeat about current sales conditions. That gauge rose 4 points. They were optimistic about future sales. That rose by 3 points. And builders were seeing an increase in traffic of prospective buyers. That gauge rose by 4%. So builders and the rest of the market still expect the Fed to cut rates in May, which could bring down mortgage rates and make home ownership more affordable for buyers. So is home building going to be the savior of because the consumer seems to have shrunk back a little bit, according to the retail sales numbers that came out this morning. So is it going to be, are people saving their money to get that first home?
Well, when you talk about home builder incentives, what you're talking about is whether they upgrade finishes in the home, where they don't increase the price of the home. So instead of like doing a discount, they'll throw in more goodies.
Right. Or they'll give a deal. They'll give a deal on the mortgage. They'll pay
Yeah, that's
the
right.
mortgage. Right.
Yeah.
The mortgage rate. Yeah.
So them needing to pull back on some of those incentives or definitely pull back on discounting, that's a sign of strength. So I think that's really good. I don't share their optimism for a rate cut. I know I might be sounding like a broken record of people who watch the spot on Thursday nights. I think the percentage in the bond or predictive market for June is like an 80% chance of at least one cut by June.
Right.
I think that's wildly optimistic.
Wow.
Yeah.
You think it'll be later than June?
Yeah.
Okay.
Committees move slower than people think. If you haven't been on committees, if you haven't volunteered on committees,
I
they
hate being
tend
on
to move
committees.
slowly. And typically like committees are 6 months late. So I think it's at best like a 50-50, whereas the market still thinks it's like an 80% or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a little disappointment along those regards coming.
Well, so let's take that estimate and put it together with all of this news that we got this morning and yesterday or Tuesday in terms of the economy. Where are you on the recession story at this point? So let me just give you a quick reminder. So I'm at 50-50. Larry Goldberg is at 100% by the second quarter.
Whoa.
100%
Wow.
by the second quarter. And I was going to say, I think Nick, I'm going to forget what Nicholas said the other day. I want to say, I think he might be thinking it's next year. I think that's what he said. He thinks it's going to be first quarter next year. So anyway, where do you think there will be a recession? Do you think it will be deep, or do you think we'll skirt it? Where are you coming out these days?
I think it's likely. So what likely mean is it means 40% or higher.
40% or higher. Okay.
And that's kind of funny because you think likely would mean like 50% or higher. Um, yeah, it doesn't feel like things are frothy outside of AI. um, yeah, I'm not a small business owner as far as like, home building or like the physical product. I sell a service, so I'm a little detached in some ways. Um, but the job market is very tight. That's typically when we're close to a recession. Every recession has started at record low unemployment, for the time that it was in. Also, like on a delayed basis from the yield curve inversion from the
Right.
2-year being higher than the 10 by a full percentage point.
Right.
Typically, recession starts about 18 months later. It's not 100%, but
No, no.
it happens a lot. So there's a lot of these factors that um, go along these lines. I did a video all about recession with Meyer Thacker on the Rebellion Era YouTube channel, and
Oh,
he
okay.
presented some more points along those lines.
Yeah, I think one of the ones two of the things that worry me the most are the fact that so many people think we're not going to have one.
Mhm.
That's one of the first things that always gets me interested is I tend to be a little bit I think that everybody gets out ahead of their skis in everything. So that's where we might have the Magnificent Six right now, way out ahead of their skis. So it's probably time for a cutback. So when everybody is saying, like last year, everybody said we were going to have a recession. That worried me so much that all year I just pounded the table. No recession, no recession, no recession. And so this year, everybody's saying not going to have a recession. So I'm like, I think there's.
Mhm.
So that's my number one. But the other one that's really bothering me a great deal is the number of layoffs in the tech world.
Mhm.
That is last year averaged 25,000 a month layoffs. And this week alone, we've seen Cisco, we've seen Paramount, we've seen others announcing, significant layoffs, thousands and thousands of layoffs. So this AI is hitting the middle class. It's not hitting the minimum wage worker. It's hitting the middle class, and they're getting nice pension. They're getting not pensions. They're
I
getting
would call it the upper middle class,
upper
someone
middle
that's
class.
a
Okay,
tech worker.
the tech worker. Yeah,
It
I mean
might be middle class in San Francisco,
just,
though, like
yeah,
how expensive it is to live there. But
right, right. Yes. So
yeah.
anyway, it's a significant, it takes two or three or four workers from the other end of the spectrum to make up for that dollar amount of money that's not going to go into the economy. So if those guys get jobs right away, no problem. But I don't know if there's enough jobs for them other than becoming, YouTube hosts. I mean, that's certainly a possibility.
Mhm.
So those are the two things that worry me. We'll see what happens. Uh,
Yeah. Well, Randy, I'm a bit of an Elon fan.
yes,
I'm
you are.
not a Uber fan, but
Like me.
Elon has done a lot of things well. And one thing he did well at X was he cut way down. Their teams were way too big.
Yeah,
They really hadn't grown the Twitter business much over the years, and but the team had grown by like I think Twitter had grown by double, but the team had grown by like 4 or 5.
right,
And Elon cut 75% of the jobs there, and the media said that X was going to die,
right.
and it lived, and
And growing.
it may have died if Elon didn't do those cuts,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, especially with all the money he had to pay in interest.
Yeah. Um, and then Mark Zuckerberg and Meta were smart to do some cuts, realizing that, big teams isn't great in tech. You want to have smaller teams where the rock stars and the A players are enabled. And possibly other firms felt pressure not to do the cuts right away because then they'd be associated with Elon. So like Elon's very controversial,
Right.
and it makes sense that tech is doing layoffs. it's definitely needed. I'm not sure how much of it is AI. A chunk of it was over hiring from the illness that
Right,
happened.
right.
Um, so, but I do think they were bloated for sure. And you look at companies like Google, who supposedly did 30,000 or more. They really struggle to commercialize their products. So for them to trim some of the fat doesn't surprise me.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, I think all those things are true. So that's kind of where my worry. I don't think it's going to be significant, but you never know because sometimes these things get rolling. So people talk about a soft
Yeah.
landing or,
And
okay,
there's a lot of tech jobs all over the US.
yeah,
So I know it's, very concentrated in California and Washington, but there's little tech hubs in a lot of
sure.
cities all over. Indianapolis has Exact Target and some other firms.
Mhm.
Minneapolis, Tennessee, Nashville,
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, no.
Austin.
Boston. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Austin and Boston.
And Austin and Boston.
And New York. So yeah, that could definitely affect the whole country. Because if it's just California that it affected, if you're outside California, then who cares, right?
I
But if
see.
it's the rest of the country, that stings a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this morning we had a report that import prices went up dramatically. And that was another one where you just had to scratch your head. You're like, Europe is in recession, China's in recession, Japan has announced today that they're in recession. You've got where is the pricing power of any of these exporting countries to where the prices could be going up. So I promised this morning that I would dig in deeper and
Uh-huh.
see if I could figure out why in the world these numbers could be up in this environment, especially because they said that one of the things that was up 0.6% was natural gas, and natural gas is at 30-year lows. And I'm like, how can that even be? All right, I figured it out.
Let me give you a theory.
Okay, go ahead. Sure,
We'll
sure,
see if
sure.
we match.
All right,
So it'll be a little game. So many people probably don't know Panama Canal is really struggling.
right.
So my idea is probably different than yours, but Panama has really bad drought and they actually need water from runoff or whatever. It's probably a rainforest there.
Yeah,
They need that runoff water to manage the canal, and I don't know if they've had to stop traffic or greatly curtail traffic.
lower, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that could be causing a problem because there's a lot of shipments that use the canal to go to the east coast of the US.
Oh yeah, a lot of people go through the canal. So you would be on the right track because
Okay.
you got the Red Sea, which
All
has
right.
also created. So we had an overabundance of containers, a huge overabundance of containers, and a 10% overabundance of ships that were just not needed because
Mhm.
we had built so many additional ships and so many additional containers during the COVID. Then now you had all this additional capacity and not enough people to use it. Well, because of the Red Sea, and I didn't think about the Panama Canal or see it in the articles that I read, but you're right about the Panama Canal. You now are seeing those ships are all back in use again, and the containers are back in use again, which is raising freight rates.
Mhm.
So yes, you might have some slight disruptions like Tesla did in terms of getting their product in time because it takes 14 days longer to go around the Cape. But
Yeah.
the problem is not that it takes 14 days longer. The problem is that people are able to raise their freight rates, and that impacts all the import export in the world, even if you're nowhere near the Red Sea or the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
So even because just all the containers go up at the same time.
Mhm.
So that's what's going on. I was happy that I was able to find a solution to that because it made zero sense. I couldn't figure out what the heck that was all about. So any other
So
thoughts?
container rates went way up then.
Container rates went up, yes.
Okay.
Now, I mean, some people are making it sound like it was as bad as during COVID when it went from like $2,000 for a typical 48 footer to something like I've heard as high as 18, 20,000
Oh
for that
wow.
same container. But people are saying it's even worse now. I see nothing to suggest it's anywhere close to what it was during COVID, but I
Yeah.
read some reports that say it's pretty bad. Anyway, but whatever it is, it's higher, and that seems to be the reason. So any other thoughts before we look at where Tesla's and the after hours now?
Yeah, I'm curious to see where sentiment goes from here. I feel like it, absent a recession, that sentiment bottomed and possibly the stock bottom. I am a financial advisor. That's not financial advice. Um, yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts over the very short term. And
Okay.
I'm curious to see what happens with the Cybertruck ramp.
Yeah. So I think I'm with you about sentiment bottoming. The question becomes, there seems now to me to be a sentiment that says that's starting to actually line up, and I'm not taking any credit for this because I'm not the only one who said it, that late 2025 and 26 is when everything's going to come together. The execution on pretty much every single product line will be happening by, let's call it January 26. So if that's true, when does the street start building towards that future information? Well, some of them are already doing it. The Dan Ives and some others are already saying, yeah, here it comes, okay? And you got to be fully invested. Others are going to say, no, I only care what's going to happen next quarter. So I think slowly but surely this year we'll see a ramp. The dollars will go up, unless, of course, two things happen, right? Full self-driving is cured, or the Optimus is shown doing real work at the factory. If either one of those two things happen, then it's Katie bar the door. But other than that, I think it'll be a nice, slow, positive year. Ups and downs, of course, because that's the nature of Tesla. But yeah, that's where I think it. So we're not far off in that analysis.
So did Tesla finish last year at 265, somewhere around there?
At the end of the year,
So do you think it's going to finish the year higher in 265?
I haven't redone my numbers, my actual numbers. Well, okay, let me give you what my numbers were. My number was that we would finish the year at 700. Okay. And the reason why 700 was because of the 2026 earnings per share. So by the end of the year, people will start figuring out the earnings per share for 2026, their estimates. And by the end of this year, people would be able to see that the earnings per share in 2026 are going to be up in like the 20s. And so at that point, the stock is at 700. I haven't redone those numbers recently, but I don't think I'm far off from that.
Yeah, so it finished the year around 250.
Finish the year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as of now, it is back to 201.92 in the afternoon. Almost a 202. Continuing to be it's been about $1.50 up in the after hours each time I've looked in the last little while. And so let's go check the bonds. The bonds are continuing to control our lives. Nothing happens unless the bond market moves. Okay, it's up 1 basis point. The 10-year is up a basis point in the pre-market. I'm sad. I want those bonds to keep going down. All of them up in the pre-market. The 2-month up 3 basis points, the 2-year up almost 3 basis points. So the inversion continues to widen, not shrink. All of that suggests what? That all suggests that we're headed for recession. So as you pointed out earlier about the inversion. Oil market, $78 continuing to inch up. So this is about the highest I think we've seen it for the last couple of weeks, is around 78. Again, Red Sea would be a potential part of that. So I'd like to see it stay under 80, because if it goes over 80, who knows? So thoughts on the oil market at all, you care?
Well, production's really high.
Very high.
the US is the largest producer of oil again.
Yep.
Ever since the Saudis attacked the US oil producers in 2014, they had been lower for a very long time. Now they're higher. Yeah, oil's been rocking and rolling.
Well, yeah, it's been in this trading range of about 72 to 76, 77. So this is kind of breaking
Mhm.
out of that trading range. We'll see where we go from here. No, never mind. Okay. Natural gas up a little bit in the pre-market, but still sitting at $1.59. I went and looked this up the other day. This is a 30-year low.
Wow.
And that's, as you know, not adjusted for inflation. This is, the actual price 30 years ago was about $1.59. And it's been way above, sometimes way above that. But right now it's back down to that 30-year low. Again, it's all because of massive amounts of production, a mild winter, and you don't get as much disruption apparently from this Red Sea on natural gas. The dollar is retreating a little because of rate cut expectations in June. Okay, that's what the headline says. I don't follow the dollar very closely because it's so complex. Because what's it doing against the yen? What's it doing against the euro? What's it doing against the pound? It's all over the place. Oh, by the way, did you hear that Germany passed Japan as the third largest economy in the world?
Okay.
That's because Japan is going down, not because Germany's doing so great. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting number today. Gold at 2014, right in its range of where it's been for a while. It's was up quite a bit today, but it had been falling for a week or so.
Back to Germany.
Yeah.
We know a new manufacturer there in Germany.
Yeah,
It's raising their export numbers.
right, exactly. They're probably helping the whole economy. They are the largest employer now in that region.
Wow.
Yep.
And we're talking about Tesla again.
Yeah, about Tesla. Yes. Okay.
Yep.
And then we got the Bitcoin up 153 for the day at 50, right around 52. That's a huge story all into itself. And then the futures. This is all wrong. Okay, here we go. Down 48, S&P down 175, and NASDAQ up 28.25. So kind of reversing what happened today. A little bit of, yeah, pretty much reversing what happened earlier. All right. So that's where we are at the end of Good News Thursday, right? We have some big numbers coming tomorrow. Yes, the PPI, the Purchasers Index on inflation. So we'll see whether that is in any way corresponding to the CPI earlier this week, or whether it is another one that shows a complete. Did you know, this is something, again, maybe some of my people that listen all the time know about this, but the PPI, they've done dozens of studies trying to show a correlation between PPI and CPI.
Mm-hmm.
They can't find any correlation. So as somebody who's done a tremendous amount of purchasing as a wholesaler, manufacturer, importer, et cetera, I could understand that, because sometimes you're sitting there and you've paid a price and you can't pass it along. The price has gone up. You can't pass it along because the other guy hasn't done it. Or maybe you pass it along, but the retailer decides he's not going to pass it along. I mean, it's just, you have all these other things that come into play in terms of what you buy it for doesn't necessarily translate into what it sells for when it gets through distribution. So no correlation.
Yeah, there's also a lot of decisions you're making as a manufacturer. You want to keep the factory going.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to keep it, running at an optimal level, and sometimes you might pay higher for your inputs than you need to just to
Keep it going.
keep things chugging along.
Yep. So anyway, no correlation, and people all think there is. I mean, you'll hear the pundits everywhere saying, well, the PPI tomorrow, this will help us understand where the CPI is going to be in the future. And it's just not true. No study's been able to prove a correlation. And they've even done it in different countries. and no correlation in those other countries either. So very, very interesting piece of news that very few people know, just us. All right, Bradford, I want to thank you for co-hosting Thursday as always, and people should go to rebellionaire.com. They should watch your videos. There was one out today on I'm going to forget the name of the company again.
Bloom Energy.
Bloom Energy.
Yeah.
And
They had a rough earnings right after our video. So
right after your video,
we might have to post a follow-up to our video to talk about what went bad and what went good.
all right. Okay, good enough. All right. Thank you, Bradford, again for being on. And to all you folks out there, it has been great talking to you.